Hello everyone and welcome. Today I am honored to host Professor Doctor in Economics Tatul Manaseryan. Mr. Manaseryan, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting.
Mr. Manaseryan, let us start with the results of the first half of 2025, which saw a decline in economic activity. However, growth was still recorded in construction, services, including information technologies and agriculture. Can these positive trends offset the decline in the industrial and trade sectors? And is the economic growth forecast for this year still achievable?
Well, first of all, I have to mention that it was predictable. We had predicted this decline even last year. And it was obvious that the re-export could not reflect the real picture in economic activities in Armenia. And once the volumes of the re-export were reduced, the real sector of economy declined. Why construction is still growing? There is a very specific feature for construction. It is a very specific branch of economy which may follow the recession if the economy is in recession as a last branch. And when it's going up, that's the last branch of economy that can also show signs of activities. Therefore, we can't count on construction to say that this is a indicator, a real indicator of, or an average indicator of economic activity in Armenia. The services, it's obvious that we're experiencing growth of tourism these months, starting spring, starting April, May, and therefore the picture will be reversed when we go to November, December. We can't have the same picture as we're having today. So it's somehow false reflection, if we can say so. But the real trends in economy are warning that we may have a decline compared to the period that we had in 2022, 23, 24 even, due to the huge inflow of not only people from Russia, but also the hard currency that brought up the value of Armenian dram more than 20%. And the total amount that was reported, a bit more than $5 billion US, you can triple it easily because these are through banks only. And one can be surprised that all Russian citizens would have bank accounts in Armenian banks. Therefore, most of them carried cash in their pockets. And this can be easily tripled. And even if it's only $5 billion US, this is much, much more, 10 times more than record high investment volumes per year in Armenia, ever, during the independence. So this was an artificial factor that influenced the economy and brought it up, while the real sector of economy didn't grow, and we had decline in agriculture in previous years. This year it's more or less doing well, but it depends also on political factors, how the government will react to Eurasian Economic Union integration trends and so on and so forth.
Mr. Manaseryan, let us talk about Armenia's current investment climate. Recent statistics show that there is a decline in both domestic and foreign investments. What steps should be taken to stimulate domestic investments, and how we can position Armenia as an attractive destination for foreign investors?
Throughout these years, I am one of the experts that emphasized the importance of stimulating the local investments. if we as a state or we as a private sector or an expert society don't focus much on internal market or local investments, why should someone invest in Armenia? I mean, this is something that we have to be concerned about. And the investment climate has nothing to do with the government policies. I can't see any even objective, any vision of the government how to improve the investment climate. And therefore, we have the picture that is a shame for Armenia, because we have nevertheless fields of economy that can absorb investments, both local and foreign investments. But we need to have clear policies for that.
Another indicator is the external debt that stood at over $30 billion as of June 2025. From my knowledge of macroeconomics, I recall that the problem is not the amount of external debt itself, but whether a country is able to cover it or serve it. From this perspective, are we able to cover this debt, or we are just inheriting it to the next generations?
It's a good question. We have probably to start from the point that how the external debt or the public debt is being formed, or where is the need. We have to justify whether or not we need to have more public debt, or the amount that we have is a burden that, and we have to somehow think about serving that debt or managing. I have to bring a figure that most of the experts don't pay attention on it, and also the government doesn't mention it either. We have the debt, as you mentioned, a bit more than 13 billion US dollars. But at the meantime, we have the bank deposits that exceed the amount, if I'm not mistaken, 16 billion US dollars. So if you look at this picture, it somehow hints that we have more resources, financial resources internally, but we can't use it properly. We prefer to borrow it from external sources, whereas they have certain requirements. You can't borrow the debt and use for your needs as you wish. You can't do that. The IMF, the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, the others, they can lend the money only for specific purposes. Whereas if you use the internal sources, no one can say that this is my requirement. You have to spend it for, I don't know, roads only or for institutional reforms. You can clearly use as your priorities are in Armenia.
What are our specific purposes for borrowing?
That's the biggest problem. The government never indicated the priorities, what are the biggest problems and where we have to spend the money more. You can see that a lot of resources can be spent as, I don't know, as as a surplus to their wages or for their travel, etc. But they try to justify that it's also a need, it's a growing need. But to me, first of all, we need to give a proper minimum wage first. Minimum pensions have to be on the level of the minimum food basket and other priorities, but also the industrial production. Somehow state have to pay attention on that. Not necessarily the financial resources, although co-financing can also be a tool that is being used by many countries, including the United States, European Union countries, etc. But you need to have an agenda. There is no agenda that is somehow openly discussed or presented to the public.
Foreign trade turnover fell by 45% in the first half of 2025, with exports down more than 52% and imports down more than 38%. It's clear that the new political realities have influenced our import-export geography. For example, trade with Russia dropped by about 55%, while trade with European Union countries increased by 9.5%. What's happening on Armenia's trade map?
Well, as I indicated, the picture and the indicators you're presenting were predictable. Last year, the re-exports were record high, and if you could look at the structure of the exports from Armenia, you could see smartphones, machinery, high-tech, or the equipment that Armenia never produces, or construction equipment, etc. It's obvious that Armenia is re-exporting these products, and jewelry and diamonds, which is the first major part of the re-exports, is declining also due to the worsening picture of relations with Russian Federation, but also with the other states of Eurasian Economic Union. The realities we have is that in early 2000s, we were dreaming of having a big trade turnover with post-Soviet countries that were our trade partners. For example, with Russia, there was a vision to increase the level of trade turnover up to $1 billion. Imagine we are having more than $16 billion trade turnover today, but we don't care about it. And it can decline to zero if we are not smart enough to, of course, we can look at new sources. We may diversify the structure or the geography of imports and exports. However, we have to care about the partnership, economic partnership. And the thing is that the United States of America, European Union, collective West, as we call it sometimes, by imposing 17 packages of sanctions against Russia, they do trade with Russia. The United States today trade with Russia, import a lot of products. The same is true with the European Union. And the question I have, why should Armenia turn into an enemy and cut off the trade relations with Russia? I mean, this is ridiculous. And the same sources that are somehow pushing Armenia to cut the trade relations with Russia, the same sources are in favor of brotherhood with Turkey, from one extreme to another. I mean, this is not, even speaking professionally, none of the experts is in favor of this kind of quick changes or sharp changes, overnight changes that brings no stability to the country and the economy.
Looking at recent inflation data, the Statistical Committee reports that in July 2025, inflation reached 3.4% compared to July 2024. Prices rose across all product categories, including agricultural goods. What's the reason of this increase?
The government never says to the public that this is not an inflation that we usually mean and understand that consumer goods and so on and so forth. This is the Consumer Price Index, which is totally different indicator. CPI, Consumer Price Index, includes around 500 commodities, and the average price or the rate the percentage is being calculated and presented to us. We have to pay attention to the consumer basket first. What are the services and goods in that basket, and whether or not we can afford it. And the 10 commodities of first necessity that we buy on daily basis, whether or not we are rich or poor, the prices of those goods, as you mentioned, those have double-digit increase in prices. And this is how we are, or why we are surprised looking at the statistic committee's indicators, 3.4%, and the real prices we have. The fish, for example, the price for fish jumped more than 20%. And the same is true with drugs, with medicine, and the other stuff. So we have to separate somehow the consumer price index that is being calculated for 500 products and the 10 basic products what we consume on daily basis. And here we have
about the causes. What are the causes?
The causes are, first of all, the government have two major functions, major things to do in the economy. First is to regulate by laws and resolutions, and second, to control. The second part is missing, totally missing. Therefore, the private sector can do whatever they decide to do, and there is no control. In a small country like Armenia, the prices can jump or come down anytime, and those prices are unpredictable.
Mm-hmm. Regarding the figures of unemployment rate, according to statistics, in the first quarter of 2025, the number of unemployed reached 188,200 people, a 9.6% increase compared to the previous quarter. The Prime Minister has stated that Armenia doesn't lack available jobs, but rather that there is a lack of willingness among people to work. What are the real causes of unemployment?
Well, first of all, let me express my doubts about those figures, because during the 7 years of being in power, the current government, if you remember, they announced different figures, but average for the first 4 years, it was around 40 to 50,000 jobs newly opened. And you can easily find those figures in many reports. If you sum up these figures, you will have zero unemployment in Armenia. Zero unemployed people, because the total number of unemployed are a bit more than 200,000. That was the figure from 2018, when this government came to power. So it means when you sum 50,000 to 50,000, then you have more people, and you will end up with people that are looking for a job but can't find, because it's full. Indians are coming, Persians are coming, and other nationalities are in Armenia. From one point, in terms of qualified labor, we are experiencing a huge need for that. From the other side, for non-qualified labor, we have a migration from Armenia. Therefore, someone have to figure out what's happening in Armenia. There are people sitting in the government, in different government structures, who are being paid for that, to make those calculations and to find the solutions for this. And the current government keeps silence. We can have new figures of increase of employment, new jobs, etc., but still have unemployed people around us. It's a small country, and it's visible.
Mr. Manaseryan, turning to wages, in June 2025, the average nominal wage in Armenia was 297,000 drams. Yet there is a significant disparity between sectors. Which sector currently offers the highest wages?
Traditionally, that's the IT sector, but we can't make an average from IT, for example. And those who work, and I call them working poor, because if you work but you can't earn enough to survive, it means your wage or income is below the minimum food basket. If you make an average from, let's say, 40,000 drams, which is much less than the food basket, and you have, let's say, 1 million or 2 million Armenian drams income of an IT programmer, whatever, or a manager, then you make an average and you will come up with even more amount of the average wage. I think that someone have to present the real picture, for example, in agriculture, how much is the income, average income of a farmer in agriculture, how much the professor, for example, like me, may earn the university, how much a driver or other workers may have, and classify it. There is that classification, but the statistic committee have to be open enough to present those figures also.
And finally, which economic sector has the greatest potential to generate growth over the next 2 years?
I think we have to look at the knowledge-based economy. The knowledge-based economy is our future. To me, we need to somehow formulate the vision for Armenia, which may not have more tangible things or more realistic targets like the knowledge-based economy. The comparative advantage of, to me, we have two comparative advantages. The one is our intellectual potential, the knowledge, and the second is the professional potential of diaspora. Not money necessarily, but the professional, the knowledge of diaspora experts that may help Armenian economy to face the today's challenges.
But do we somehow engage them, diaspora,
Just
in our economy?
Just the opposite is true for these 7 years. We discouraged many diaspora experts, professionals, to do business in Armenia, to be involved in any project, any major project that may have a future in Armenia. I think here we are experiencing one of the worst times in our newest history. And during our independence, 35 years, we declared independence and made numerous efforts to engage diaspora. Today, we have total isolation of diaspora from Armenia, and that's because of the policies of the current government.
Thank you for the interview.
My pleasure. Thank
Let me remind you that my guest today was Professor Doctor in Economics, Tatul Manaseryan.